Hey y'all, I'm Morgan and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Today we're going to be doing a book review for Bridget Kimmerer's new book, Forging Silver into Stars. I'm so glad you're joining us. If it's your first time here, welcome. I do bookish reviews, unboxings, vloggy things, all sorts of booky goodness, and I hope that you will check out some of my other videos and continue coming back to join us. In this one, we return to Stars Hollow. Oh my gosh, how do I say that name? How do you say that name? I don't know. And Emberfall, set 4 years later from the events in the Cursebreakers trilogy. And Forging Silver into Stars introduces us to two new characters while being from the same three perspective setup as the previous one. We see from Tycho again, who we met with Gray in the tourney at Warskik. Me and names, but this who was the Sable Boy with Gray in the second book and who traveled with him and learned from him. And so we come back and we see him, and he has been promoted kind of to being King's emissary, Queen's courier. Same job description, two different titles since Stars Hollow has a queen and Emberfall has a king. Liamara and Gray have gotten married and are trying to rule over both kingdoms and have peace, and obviously all is not going well. Our other two characters are new, and that would be Kaylin and Jax, best friends from Briarlock, yes, that's their village, which is a good distance from the capital of the Crystal City in Stars Hollow. And they believe they're far removed from royalty, but events make them find out otherwise. After much deliberation, I think I'm going to give it a 4. It wasn't bad. It was good. I have liked what it's setting up to do. Like, hopefully, much better than how, the third one ended and what the madness of the characters there. But it was 500 something pages. And I feel like possibly we could have been a little bit shorter. Yeah, I think maybe if it had been a little bit shorter, it would have gone better. Because pacing-wise, it definitely dragged in several spots for me. But the story itself was good. I liked our new characters. So the main thing about this book, though, is the country of Shallow. This is going to go horribly. My pronunciations. But the main thing is magic has been banned there for generations, centuries, something. And now their new king has magic. So the people there are very not accepting of this. They don't want to admit the king in. They think that he's using the magic to corrupt the queen. Like, the common people are, oh my gosh, loyal to the queen, super for the queen. They just want to help the queen. And yet at the same time, they're so very against the king. Okay, she chose to marry him. She loves him. Everything shows, the people that they're one, they're trying to rule together, trying to bring peace. And yet they think she's just being manipulated. And that's very, yeah. But because that deep ingrained fear is so prevalent in the population, that our two main characters, who are simple villagers, kind of, Kaylin is a baker and Jax is a blacksmith. Well, the son of a blacksmith, but he's kind of doing all the work because his father is a drunk who's hardly never around. So we'll just say he's a blacksmith, even though he's like an apprentice still. But he can do all the work himself. And they grew up, reading the stories of magic and the scavenger creatures from the icy forest, whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce. And like being kind of fascinated with magic, but at the same time just very fearful of it, of what magic does and everything. And then as in this sort of time period, all they get really are rumors of the royal family, rumors of the horrible king's magic, rumors of the monsters. And so they're kind of, against the whole magic in the first place. And it doesn't help that Kaelin's mother was in the queen's army. So in the previous books, she would have went to Emberfall and tried to conquer, subdue Ren and Gray and Harper in that one. And she was killed. So Kaelin, besides just being afraid of magic, she also has a very deep personal reason for thinking all of it is bad and this isn't right. And enter into their lives, though, is Tycho, who, of course, has spent the last 4 years with King Gray and in the court and growing as like a soldier and a person. And he has gotten kind of access to magic a little bit through discoveries Gray's made, where he can enchant rings and items with special steel to be able to let people have a little bit of magic. So he's very okay with magic because he knows that Gray would only use it to help people or only in defense of his family. And so it's just very different perspectives, and their encounter with him at first and how afraid they are and on edge they are. And he didn't understand it. It really took him a long time to kind of see from an outside perspective what's happening. Even though as he travels as the courier, he of course hears all the rumors and everything, but it never sinks into his mind like what the level of fear is and what the suspicion is until he meets Kaelin and Jax. And it's kind of adorable. Also, in that first kind of meeting and everything, from what you've already seen from Kaelin's perspective of how she does kind of have a crush on her best friend, but then seeing Lord Tycho and being like, oh, well, he is kind of handsome, and you're like, oh, she's doing it again. We're circling the love triangle thing. But no, she always does that. She seems to hint at it, suggest to it, but it'll never happen. Never happen. But this one, I think, happens. The romance in this one is just the sweetest thing. And it's not who you're expecting, but how they go about it. For one, it's just so accurately frustrating. Because you got to think they're all maybe teenagers. And in this time period, courting and whatnot, everything's all very new and emotional to them. And it was just so sweet once the feelings were finally known on both sides, and how gentle they were about things, like understanding the other one's past trauma. And it was just, this one might be my favorite romance of all three of them. I like Harper and Ren, I really do. I also, because I can't remember with those as much, if the details of things were in that one. I mean, it's not spicy details or anything like that. It's just more the emotional details of an act of something happening. I don't remember that necessarily from the other one, but it happened in this one, and that was different. So I'm just wondering if I don't remember. While the other ones were more about fighting evil, saving love, finding love, whatever. This one is super politically story motivated. Like, it's all about traitorous machinations and undercurrents within the country against the royal family, and who's really on what side, like what constitutes a traitor to the country. This one dove way into that. And some of the things that happen, you're like, I get that people are afraid, and I get that all they're really getting is rumors. You don't know what the truth of the matter is. But some of the actions, you're like, oh my goodness. How could they? Why would they? I don't know. I know that like things like that probably really did happen in the olden days when people, wanted to topple governments and stuff. But I don't know. I just can't wrap my brain around somebody who would see a 3-year-old as a target Once I got towards the last 150 pages though, there was a lot going on. That went really fast. Not hard to do at all. But the middle, and it's just, a lot of it was just stubbornness of people and not being able to say actual things or not being willing to listen. So much could have maybe been avoided if we could have conversations, especially when one of them is supposed to be an adult. And yet, stubborn bullheadedness. I'm going to say a few spoilers now, so if you don't want to hear them, this would be the chunk of the video to skip now that I've figured out how to put chapters on my videos. Yay for learning. First, I guess we'll start with my last comment of the stubborn bullheadedness. How I didn't like the decisions and what she did kind of with Prince Rin at the end of the Cursebreakers. It's kind of like she was doing that a little bit with Gray in this book. So I get that he's the king and he's got to make decisions. He's trying to protect his family. But it's like she took how he was a little bit in the last series and just like multiplied the stubbornness to where he wasn't willing to accept the full picture outlook on most of things. And the way he just kind of shut down against Tycho, he didn't lose trust in him. He believed, he wasn't really out to hurt the family. But the way he acted towards him made Tycho even more sure that he'd lost Gray's trust. And he's like, well, he didn't. But they could not communicate at all. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like how you've been his friend and his mentor and you know this kid. You've kind of raised him into the person he is. And you would get why he would do certain things and you get that this person provokes him and stuff like that. And sure, you probably shouldn't have set Lord Alec's arms on fire just a little bit. But you didn't even really get to let him explain what caused him to do that. Like, okay, you just heard he was provoked. But Tycho, in his own right, didn't say that he wasn't there in that moment. That he was in a memory. That, the trauma was taking over. Because, oh my God, Tycho's level of PTSD in this book. I mean, I know we didn't see from his perspective in the other series. But being that this is 4 years later, and he's trained with soldiers, he's been part of the army and everything, but his level of PTSD in this book, I feel like, was much stronger than his child character self even had. On that though, seeing it from Tycho's perspective and seeing how he's emotionally dealing with the events in his life and how things are coming back around and all the triggers and how he's trying to get better and how he always keeps people at arm's length, no emotional attachments. And the book does give him a little bit of growth in that. He gets a healthy relationship happening and somebody who understands that he's been through a lot and is being patient and always asking, is this okay? Are you okay? It was just perfect. I love their relationship. Jax and Tycho are adorable, and yes, once open communication finally was able to happen there, because they both, started liking each other, but they couldn't say it because they didn't know how the other one felt, especially Jax, because he was always so happy when Tycho was there, but he knew it would just hurt a lot when he was gone, and so he just didn't want to have the good feelings because he knew it would hurt more later. Just yelling but finally the angry yelling kind of came around to where they admitted it, and it was just the sweetest. The machinations of the truth bringers who are against magic, against the king, but all for the queen. They support the queen. They're loyal citizens. That the queen's just being misled. So you people who are slightly noble, mostly noble, but get the common people into, and have 300 plus people with weapons, angry, attacking the palace. And yet, when Grey fights back, with magic, because there's not enough guards, and ends up, killing a lot of people, the king is bad, the king is evil, even though people with weapons just invaded his home, where his wife and 3-year-old are. You don't know how close that they got until later, but when Tycho says about how everyone was still shaken, even though the princess was okay, they killed her nanny. So that means they got all the way to the princess's little nursery area and killed her little caretaker to try to take her. A 3-year-old. Common people. I read that and I was like, oh my God, how can you be this insane? And yet, the common people still rumored, oh, the king's evil. The king killed all those people in the uprising. Yeah. Yeah. I'm all for Grey on that one. Protect his family. Yes, okay. I liked getting to see Rin again in this book, and with Tycho, and with the fact that they were able to move on from what happened in the previous books between the two of them, and how Rin was much more himself, like he was in the first book. He was calculating and logical, and he fought with his words. And yes, that is how he should have always been. I hated when he had to go with crazy Rin. Overall, I really enjoyed this book and our new outlook on the world, seeing it from fresh eyes that are not part of the royal courts in any form or fashion, but just seeing how these two kingdoms clashing and then kind of joining as one in peace, what it looks like to their outside citizens, like how magic affects their lives without people really realizing it, or the way information even travels in this day and age, and the rumors, and just the general lack of not actual knowledge of the people in play in question. It was just very good addition, I think, because we don't get that as much sometimes. We'll see things from the big little picture of our main characters, and that are the ones right there involved in the nitty-gritty of it. And then this is more an outside look at people who are just normal, though they do get involved into the deep end of it. By the end of the book, they are very thrown in there and out of their element, and just, yeah, I'm excited to see where this is going to go, how our political machinations are going to play out over the next few books, especially the character involved in the epilogue. I wonder if we'll start to see more of his perspective in the following books, and see which way he really does fall, because you were kind of getting a sense there towards the end that he was maybe not as bad, but then the epilogue, and it's like, well, maybe he is. Maybe he is. And I mean, he didn't know about this plot that ended up happening. Of course, it wasn't his idea, or he thought this other thing was going to happen. But once he didn't really hear about it. He kind of heard about it. He wasn't super against it or angry or anything. So yeah, I'm gonna want to see how that happens and plays out when this series continues. Cause yeah, and it's just another beautiful cover though to add to the piles of beautiful books. This one is definitely going to be a YA fantasy book. So if you are into the more YA fantasy, I think you would like this one. Or if you like the more politically driven, more than adventure, I guess, focused, or romance focused, this one could be up your alley as well. I do think you should probably read the Cursebreakers series first, so you kind of know what a lot of the things they're talking about with the Fallout. Though it does have enough on its own with the new characters and Tycho's background being explained more, that you could start with this one if you really wanted to. If you just had heard stuff about Cursebreakers and you're like, I don't know if I want to go into that, then just pick this one up. It could still work. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and sticking with me. I post bookish reviews unboxings, vlogs. If you would like to check any of those out, or if you have been liking my content, please consider subscribing and joining our little community here. I hope you are finding something great to read this weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye!